variety of skills and capabilities. So if those digital home services are not usable to begin with because they are not efficient or they do not meet the needs of the dweller in the digital home, with regard to access of the different services offered by the Society of Information, there's little to do. In other words, we have an interaction form that is not efficient for everyone, so there is no accessibility, and therefore for the dweller there would not be such a digital home because there's not such a perception of enjoyment of the capabilities of the digital home. This is a very essential requirement. I'd like to give you a brief outlook of the definition 9999 ISO standard that speaks about any product, especially device or existing in the market, and it talks about preventing, compensating, controlling, relieving, or satisfying or covering or meeting any deficiency or any shortcoming in the using and the installation. So the support product as environment, that would be a series of products used to support, is not only a technical help in the most traditional sense of the word, metaphorically speaking, crouches. We're talking about supplements that will complement that would be useful for functional services. We're talking about technological issues and something that is embedded in the environment of the dweller, the home. We're talking about the fact that if I need to do that in the kitchen, I don't want to take God knows what tool to do it. The environment should provide it for me. This interaction, this natural interaction, it's what is considered crucial when we talk about a digital accessible home. This is just a couple of notes on accessibility that is a part of a larger entirety. This is human factors, and human factors within the context of the digital home. We are concerned about functionalities and services available concerning the different capabilities, and for that purpose we want efficiency, security, easy to use, and if something is intelligent, necessarily from the approach of intelligent ambient and intelligent environment has to offer secure, intelligent ways to interact with the dweller, with the user. Just an anecdote, just a bit of fun. Where I live is a block of 10 flats, and finally we have a ramp, because I've been vindicated for that. I've been asking for this, and we have a little money left in the budget to install this ramp. So in the past few weeks they were installing the ramp at the entrance, at the hall, and when I was leaving my flat, accompanying my children to school, I was watching over and making sure whether the gradient would be the correct one. I mean, you know, all of those issues. If the ramp is not too tilted, if it's not too inclined. So one day I was coming back from university. It was quite late. It was later than I would have wanted to. And oh, look at that ramp. It's wonderful. Gradient is beautiful. It's not slippery. And there's no any hindrance, there's no obstacle, no barrier provoking stepping over it or stumping over. And then, oh my God, the switch that was on the wall to open the door, that switch, well, all of a sudden, because they changed the marble, they put it half a meter higher next to the door. So we have a wonderful ramp, but you can't reach the switch because they misplaced it and they placed it half a meter higher. So I thought, great, wonderful. We have a wonderful ramp, but just because of a stupid electronic or electromechanic things, accessibility is done away with. So from the human factor standpoint, you see, I couldn't help it. So I went down and I saw these guys and I saw very cautiously, look, the ramp is wonderful, but the switch was accessible used to be, and now it's no longer accessible because of the height. But the worst or the best part of the story, depending on how you look at it, is that the workers working in that ramp, they listen carefully. The foreman listens and says, "Oh yeah, you're quite right. It's true. If anyone comes with busy hands, it will not be able to." And then somebody, 60-year-old, comes down and listens to the last part and says, "Well, it doesn't really matter. We, the elderly, we will never come down in a wheelchair. So, what?" And I thought, well, of course, if you don't have such a ramp, it would be difficult. But I would love to provide this just in case I end up in a wheelchair. So, it's an issue related to sensitiveness and how, the link of accessibility is all of a sudden that chain is broken in the frailest wing. And it's not bad will, it's just simply negligence. And I would like to ask a question to the audience. Would my 60-year-old neighbor who says nobody is ever going to end up in a wheelchair here, so it's not really worth it to change the switch, is that an intelligent thought? I mean, I don't want to offend my neighbor, my 60-year-old neighbor, but is he being intelligent in having these thoughts? Well, from a pure analysis viewpoint of the access entrance, I mean, is your access to your home. It's not a satisfactory way to meet the demands of the dwellers. And that concept of intelligence we are using when we talk about ambient intelligence, this is very much related to the perception the person has as to how his personal needs are met. So when we think about that human factor, the user or the person who enjoys the services or the technology, we not only have to think about usability and accessibility. Obviously, as the telecare standard describes, we need to include privacy, the legal aspects, security, ethics, training, other added value regarding location, organizing issues. Is a much wider thing that I will not get into detail right now. But of course, ethics. If you ever tackle the issue of ethics and digital home, it all makes sense. Because then we will not be talking about intelligence, because there's a universal right to good service, ensuring the well-being of people in their own homes, and there's also the need to respect the independence and the way people are independent in their movements. Or at the end of the day, are we talking about, well, this is our leitmotif, the research leitmotif. We are now really immersed, i.e. people feel looked after but not controlled, cared for but not controlled. Well, that's really the end of it. And this comes back to the anecdote I was telling you about my block of flats and the entrance hall, both in design, maintenance and assistance of any kind of service that wishes or aims at meeting expectations for a digital home. You should be thinking about well-being of the dwellers, offering flexibility in interaction, customizing, communications, and regular or frequent evaluation, like the consequences derived from the ramp installation that they changed. It came back to changing the switch. And then after a number of days, they said, well, yes, maybe we should be changing it. It's a good thing you mentioned that, because nobody's going to come and sort out the problems later. So there's really no options when it comes to intelligence. This, to summarize it by way of expectations and what this has to do with independent life and accessible home, it means that from the environment and dependence standpoint, all of the agents involved, services, accessible products that have to be easy. Again, another funny story that I was telling in another conference. If this home is not accessible, then What we understand by this is that it is very expensive when we hear about not accessible, but accessible is not the same as affordable. Which of course in Spanish works better because it's just changing one letter. So in this paper, what I'm talking about is expectations related to improving the disabled person quality of life, promoting personal independence and the use of accessible, affordable and easy to use technologies, that easy and that complex, because of course technologies many times are not simply born and they do not reproduce and they just carry on living, and sometimes they just become extinct without meeting the ends that we wanted to meet. And this is the way you have to approach digital home. Many technologies came because they came from domotics, and with some added value we made them accessible, but they were not incubated as such from the very beginning. So when we talk about the digital accessible home, we could easily end up with a whole set of devices, alarms for outdoors, indoors, support to mobility, health, etc. And all of that entire bunch of devices, what they're going to do simply is raise usability and uses like the ones I'm presenting here today. Something very simple, and then to go back to what it is intelligent. The gas detector in the kitchen is linked to radio through a gateway of teleexistence, if there's a CO2 leak. This is ended up in the closure of the boiler, plus an alarm triggered an emergency signal on the TV or on the screen, some LEDs flashing. All of these would be indicators and signs for the person, the dweller, that would provoke detection, action, reaction, based upon four main elements: the sensor identifying the problem, communication that always have to be available, the user interface that has to be accessible, and the action derived from this through environment control, domotics, etc. Now, the approach from the person standpoint, not only thinking in terms of sensitiveness, but also usability and reasoning, is that there should be, and this is what we're looking for in ambient intelligence, a balance between the necessary degree of automated that is devices that is related to security and person's control and decision power. The person should also be entitled to have some decision power and guaranteeing at the same time security and well-being. When we talk about growing cognitive impairment or increasing or growing deterioration of the cognitive skills, this is more arguable. But somehow this would be like asking for informed consent so that we could decide whether the person would go before the automated device or whether the person would follow the chain of reaction, because the security is not committed or compromised, rather. Now, intelligent. Let us take another image.